Bill 2016. I have received a letter from the honourable member for Blaxland proposing that a definite matter of public importance be submitted to the House for discussion, namely the government's failure to deliver on the NBN for Australians. I call upon all those honourable members who approve of the proposed discussion to rise in their places. And I call the member for Blaxland.
You've got a lot of support for this one, Jason.
Mr Speaker, this is the latest report from Akamai, which ranks internet speeds of different countries around the world, and it is a damning indictment on this government and this Prime Minister, because in the last 3 years Australia has gone from 30th in the world to 60th in the world. From 30th for internet speeds to 60th in the world, behind most of Asia, behind most of Europe, behind America, behind Canada, even New Zealand, even behind Russia, Poland, even Slovakia. And this is this Prime Minister's legacy as Communications Minister, from 30th in the world for internet speeds down to 60th. He was a failure as Communications Minister, and a failure not just according to this report, but according to his own standards, to the standards that he set for himself just over 3 years ago when he released the Coalition's plan for fast broadband and an affordable NBN. His policy he put to the people of Australia at the last election, because most of the promises that were made in this policy have now been broken. Including the two big ones that were in this policy were a promise that he could build the NBN for $29.5 billion and that everyone in Australia would have access to the NBN by the end of this year. And both of those have now been broken, not by a little bit, but by a lot. The cost of the NBN isn't $29.5 billion anymore. It's now blown out to up to $56 billion. And the Prime Minister, I remember in question time today, the Prime Minister gave us a lecture about $20 billion and how much that was. He said in answer to the first question, "We regard $20 billion as a huge amount of money. It could provide a full year of hospital funding, more than a full year of schools funding, the duplication of the Hume Highway." Well, the blowout of the NBN is more than that, more than $20 billion. It's blown out by $26.5 billion on his watch. Remember the other promise, the promise that everyone would get the NBN this year. Everyone across Australia. Tasmania would have got it last year, apparently. They're still waiting. The whole country would get it this year. Well, guess what? Still waiting. If you're still buffering, blame Malcolm Turnbull. More than 80% of the country are still waiting for Malcolm Turnbull's second-rate NBN. It's an epic fail. And where this really rubs people the wrong way is in electorates like Perth and Cowan in WA, seats like Banks in New South Wales, Deakin in Victoria, or Bonner in Queensland. In these electorates,
In Bonner, you're a goner.
sorry to say it, but Bonner as well. In these electorates, no one in an existing home or business has the NBN. Not a soul. And remember, the Prime Minister said that everyone in these electorates would have the NBN this year. It's an extraordinary breach of faith. And it's the same on the west coast of Tasmania, where before the last election the Prime Minister said that he would build a fibre link to the west coast of Tasmania. Both sides of politics said the same thing. We'd build fibre to the west coast of Tasmania. And then slyly and sneakily, without any announcement, in August last year, the Prime Minister switched the west coast of Tasmania from building a fibre link to putting them on the satellite version of the NBN. And understandably, the people of the west coast of Tasmania have had a gutful of that. They are awfully peeved off. I went to a community meeting in Queenstown in Tasmania last month with the local member. I've never been to a meeting with more people who were so angry about being ripped off and dudded by this government on the NBN. They said things in that meeting that I couldn't repeat in this parliament. They were seriously angry, felt they'd been dudded, and that's why I was in Tasmania again last week, where I announced that a shortened Labor government will reverse this sneaky bad decision by Malcolm Turnbull and give the people of the west coast of Tasmania the fibre link that they were promised. Now, why has all this happened? Why all the broken promises? How did the Prime Minister get this policy that he put together 3 years ago so wrong? Well, there's one word for it, and it's copper. He thought that he could do fibre to the node quite simply, quite cheaply. He thought it would be easy, but he seriously underestimated how hard it would be to go from building a fibre NBN to a copper NBN. He said that he could negotiate access to the copper from Telstra quickly. Said he could do it in a couple of months. It ended up taking nearly 2 years to seal the deal with Telstra. He also underestimated how much it would cost to build this copper version of the NBN fibre to the node. He said it would be $600 a home for fibre to the node, but again, a massive error. In fact, it was $1,600 a home. He also underestimated the cost of fixing the copper. He said it would be $55 million to fix the old copper that they bought back from Telstra. He said it was a conservative assumption. Well, in fact, it's $783 million. It's blown out by more than 1,000%. He's also had problems with the rollout of this copper NBN. A good example of that, a story that was in the Sydney Morning Herald only a couple of months ago, revealed that NBN Co were supposed to have rolled out fibre to the node to 94,000 homes by the 12th of February, but they got nowhere near that. According to leaked documents, they only hit 29,000. And then last month, another leaked document, this time in the Financial Review, the headline, "Leaked Documents Confirm Lengthy Delays," that revealed of the first 40 fibre to the node areas, all of them are behind schedule. Not one of them has been built on time. Every single one of those first 40 fibre to the node areas, all behind schedule. But it gets even worse, because where it has been switched on, it's not working properly. And I've told the parliament stories before about the problems in the Hunter, in the Central Coast, in Bundaberg, where people have signed on to fibre to the node, and they're now getting slower speeds than they were getting with ADSL. And a good example of that was a recent headline that was in the Hunter. Hunter's national broadband network in crisis as consumers are plagued by delays and speed issues, tells the story of one man, Mark Jackson, who said, "As soon as we connected, our speeds went down really badly to the point where I can't even use Facebook." Can't even use Facebook. That's Mark Jackson. He's just one. He's just one. There are many, many people in the Hunter who are complaining to good local members of parliament and complaining to NBN Co, saying fix this mess. And it's got that bad that last week NBN Co actually issued an official apology to the people of Hunter, to the people of the Hunter, apologising for the mess that they've made. And then yesterday, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman released its complaints data for the first 3 months of this year. And when you look at the complaints data, one thing stands out. All these suburbs like Toukley, Newcastle, Warners Bay, Belmont North, all suburbs that are in areas where Malcolm Turnbull's slower second-rate copper version of the NBN has been switched on, all areas where complaints are up. In fact, 6 of the top 10 suburbs in the Telecommunication Industry's Ombudsman's complaint report yesterday are areas where fibre to the node has recently been switched on.
Can you table the list?
And it gets even worse than that. I've told the parliament before about how much new copper this government is buying to make this second-rate network work. 10 million metres of new copper, enough to connect Melbourne to Mumbai. But now it gets even more bizarre than that, because I recently found this job ad on Seek. Manager Copper Service Assurance.
Jobs of the future.
The Manager Copper Service Assurance will lead an NBN team working closely with the managed service partner teams in Melbourne, Mumbai and Delhi. This role will provide visible leadership in relation to performance management for all aspects of inbound-outbound service management. This role will be based in Mumbai, India. This is not a fly-in, fly-out role. It will require the Manager of Copper Service Assurance to reside in India, on an ongoing basis. So not only have they bought back Telstra's old copper network, not only are they now buying 10 million metres of new copper, but now they're sending jobs to Mumbai to fix their second-rate copper network. What a mess! What a mess, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's going to take a Labor government to fix this mess.
I call the Honourable Minister for Communications.
Well, Mr Deputy Speaker, this is the best that Labor has got on budget day. Labor is so bereft of a plausible story to tell on economic management that on the day the Australian people turn their attention to the vital question of which party has the better economic plan for Australia, the best that Labor can come up with as a topic for a matter of public importance debate is this tired old piece of wishful thinking from the member for Blaxland. The member for Blaxland dreams of an alternative universe in which Labor are competent administrators and the coalition is failing in its NBN rollout plan, and he hopes if he says it often enough that alternative reality will come true. So on the 17th of September 2015, the MPI topic was the Prime Minister's mismanagement of the NBN. He had another go on the 21st of October, the Prime Minister's second-rate NBN. On the 10th of February this year, the Prime Minister failing Australians with his second-rate NBN, and now he's trying again the government's failure to deliver on the NBN for Australians. The member for Blaxland can say it as often as he wants, but it's just not true. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, there are three fundamental propositions. Labor is hopeless on delivery. Labor was, secondly, hopeless on the delivery of the national broadband network in their 6 years of government. And thirdly, where Labor failed, the coalition is delivering. Let's turn to the question of Labor's proven hopelessness on delivery. I mean, it's frankly extraordinary that the Labor Party would come in here and voluntarily raise the topic of delivery on a policy promise. Let's just remind ourselves, on budget day, what promise comes to mind? The 4 years of surpluses I promised tonight. And of course, did the member for Lilly deliver it? He delivered nothing. What about the naval ships and submarines? How much was delivered in 6 years? Oh, that would be nothing. Again, nothing. While we're talking about Labor's delivery record, nothing. What about Fuel Watch and Grocery Watch? What did that deliver? Well, that delivered actually nothing. What about the home insulation program? What did that deliver? Well, we do know, unfortunately, that delivered house fires and, tragically, the deaths of 4 young Australians. What about border protection? What about Labor's complete failure to deliver when it came to border protection? Oh, well, they did deliver 50,000 illegal arrivals and over 1,000 deaths at sea. What about Labor's failed deal to send asylum seekers to Malaysia, declared illegal by the High Court? What about the mining tax? What about the mining tax, the tax that failed to deliver just about any revenue? What about Labor's GP super clinics? Remember Labor's GP super clinics? 28 were promised at the 2010 election. By 2013, 1 was operational. That's more than the ships they delivered. 1 was operational. What about ending the double drop-off? Remember the promise to end the double drop-off. In 2007, they promised to build 260 childcare centres under the End the Double Drop-Off policy. By February 2010, they'd built 3. What about trades training centres? They promised to build 1 of those in each of our 2,650 high schools. By February 2010, how many were operational? 1. So it really is deeply ill-advised of the Labor Party to talk about delivery. Delivery, the very topic they presume to raise in this matter of public importance debate this afternoon, because when it comes to delivery, the Australian people know from the track record of the Labor Party that they are hopeless. Let's turn specifically to their record of delivery when it comes to the national broadband network. What did they first promise in 2007? At the election then, they promised a network that was going to be 12 megabits per second, it was going to go to 98% of the population, it was going to be fibre to the node, and it was going to cost taxpayers a mere $4.7 billion. What happened in April 2009? They had to admit that policy was a complete failure. They could not deliver on it. Are we noticing a theme about Labor? They are hopeless at delivery. What then happened in April 2009? Oh, new policy. Fibre to the premises, it was going to deliver to 12.2 million people, but there was still going to be private sector investment. Of course, by 2010 they had to admit they couldn't get that because the expert consultants' report that they themselves commissioned said the private sector would not touch it with a barge pole. And what did they deliver by September 2013 after 6 years in government? Well, they'd spent money. They'd spent over $6 billion. And of the 12.2 million premises, how many actual connections were there when Labor left government in September 2013? Barely 50,000 premises connected. This was a rolled gold implementation disaster. So it really is extraordinary that Labor should presume to come into this chamber and even raise the topic of delivery when their track record is absolutely dismal. Now let's have a look at what the coalition's been doing since we've been in government, getting on to deliver the NBN. What's the first thing we did? We put in a competent board of experienced telecommunications professionals because, bizarrely, there were no people on the NBN board who knew much about telecommunications. They did not have the expertise. We brought in a competent board chaired by Ziggy Switkowski, former CEO of Telstra, former CEO of Optus. Then we brought in a competent management team led by Bill Morrow, a former CEO of Vodafone in Australia, of Vodafone and other network businesses all around the world. Step 1, competent board. Step 2, competent management team. Next step, let's get a credible rollout plan. Multi-technology mix, fibre to the premises, fibre to the node and HFC. Let's say that it turns out that the hybrid fibre coax network, built in the 90s, is capable at modest cost of being upgraded to 100 megabits per second. It turns out that's what the technical expertise advises. That might be a slightly better idea than Labor's insanely wasteful and fundamentally stupid idea of paying both Telstra and Optus, in Telstra's case billions, in the case of my former employer Optus over $800 million, to tear down a working network. And that's why a team of credible, experienced telecommunications professionals, once they got in there, said this is a sensible way to proceed, multi-technology mix. How's it going? Well, you can find out very easily, because every week the rollout numbers are reported on the internet, on the company's website, something that never happened in Labor's time. Quarter after quarter, 7 quarters in a row, NBN has met the financial targets and the rollout targets that it has set for itself. Did that ever happen under Labor? No, they never met their targets. Why? Because they had no idea what they were doing. And let's look at the number of Australians who are now able to connect to this network. It's almost 2 million premises. That compares to barely 50,000 people who were connected to the network when Labor left government. It's now 2 million premises. Now, this is a tough, complex job, and there is more to do, but we are getting on with it, and we are now seeing the fibre to the node rollout continuing at over 10,000 premises a week, and that number will rise continually over coming months and years. This is a challenging rollout. We are getting on with the job. We are delivering the NBN, and it is frankly an extraordinary proposition from the Labor Party to come in here and even begin to raise the topic of delivery. Because what the Australian people know, when it comes to NBN or when it comes to any other aspect of Labor's dismal track record, you cannot trust Labor on NBN. But the most interesting question is, what's Labor's plan? What are Labor actually going to do when they get into government, should they get into government, to deal with the national broadband network? What is Labor actually going to do? Well, it's quite interesting, because what did the Leader of the Opposition say when he was asked this question at a forum televised on Sky News? He said, quotes, "We won't rip up everything that Mr Turnbull has done, because I think not everything the Liberals do is bad. So we will do a hybrid of some of what he's done, but we will have in our announcement, which we'll be putting out pretty soon, a greater proportion of the use of fibre, and we'll also look at the proportions of fibre, and we think we can provide more of that to more Australians." What does that actually mean, Mr Deputy Speaker? What it actually means is that it is the multi-technology mix. It is a mix of fibre to the premises, fibre to the node, fibre to the distribution point, HFC, hybrid fibre coax, all the elements being brought together to get the NBN rolled out as quickly as possible. And what the Leader of the Opposition has effectively conceded is that ours is the best plan. Ours is a plan that is delivering, and the most sensible thing for Labor to do, should they get back to government, would be to maintain the plan. That's essentially what he signalled that Labor is going to do. Labor are very unwise to be talking about delivery, because on NBN, everything else, their track record is dismal. On this side of the House, we are delivering.
The minister's time has expired. I call the member for.
If there was any greater tell that they were embarrassed about their own failure at NBN, is the fact that their minister, who was so deeply involved in it for so long, spent the first half of his speech talking about anything other than NBN, because they do not want to talk about NBN at all. It has turned out to be a massive embarrassment for them, because a network that was supposed to be delivered faster is being delivered slower, a network that was supposed to be delivered cheaper is doubling the cost, and they're failing to even meet the simple targets they set for themselves. In fact, to their great credit, NBN is rolling out apologies for service faster than fibre. They have done very well at the apology letter writing business. They're doing excellent at that. And I do love the fact, the sense of irony, that they put out the coalition, this policy on communications on the NBN. What it really should have been is their promise to deliver high-speed semaphore, because that is all they're capable of delivering. When you go through the stats, and they are damning, let's go through every single thing they said they would do, and did they deliver? And this is the reason why Minister Fletcher was unable to talk about the NBN for the first half of his speech. Now, Malcolm Turnbull promised everyone in the country they'd get NBN this year. More than 83% of the country still waiting for the second-rate network. Malcolm Turnbull, he said that his second-rate NBN would cost $29.5 billion, now almost $56 billion. He said in 2013 he'd get his second-rate NBN to all homes in Australia by this year, that timeframe out to 2020. He said that his second-rate copper net NBN would cost $600 per home, now tripled, $1,600 a home. He said in 2013 it would cost $55 million to patch up the old copper network. That's blown out by more than 1,300%. He said 1,300%, member for Throsby. He also said in 2013 2.61 million homes would be connected to pay TV cables by 2016. He said 2.61 million. Now, get this, it's forecast by NBN that they will only connect 10,000 homes by June this year, from 2.1 million to 10,000. He said his second-rate network would bring in $2.5 billion in revenue. It's crashed to $1.1 billion. These are all nails in the coffin of the fantasy that that side would deliver faster broadband. Every single one. But you know what the most damning one is? In his 2 years as Communications Minister, the man who promised us fibre to the node, he did not connect a single paying customer to his fibre to the node network. Not one in 2 years, not one. I mean, to say that you're the friend of the NBN, to say that you're going to deliver on the NBN, that's almost like Kathy Bates in Misery classifying her sledgehammer as a therapeutic good. I mean, it is ridiculous that your side can even competently say, in any shape or form, that you're here to deliver. You are not. You are simply slowing down the network, and people know that it is a dud. And now you have a situation where the jobs of the future are being shipped out overseas, and the jobs of the future are to deal with copper. I mean, who in their right mind ever said that the future is copper? It's like delivering a hybrid horse and buggy. You know, it is a joke of what you have turned this network into, that you could be reduced to this, that would all be about copper. And you know what I'd be interested in, Minister? During your time in Optus, you talk so much about the hybrid network, you talk about HFC and hybrid fixed cable. I would love, coax, sorry. is that I'd be interested to know, you know the name of it, but you know how bad it is, and you never actually mention how many complaints you'd be getting on that network as well, and how unreliable it was during your time at Optus, and how unreliable it be now. It is still stuck. They are still stuck in the past. So the bottom line is this. If you want to see a modern network, if you want to see one that will actually meet the expectations of the community, you cannot rely on that side opposite. They will do everything they can to slow the rollout down, to make sure it's inaccessible and to make sure it doesn't deliver for Australians in the way that they want, and it's going to be Labor that will have to fix up this network.
I thank the member for Chifley and I call the honourable member for Forrest.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And Minister Fletcher, you spoke about Labor's lack of ability to deliver. But we do know what they can deliver, and they can deliver record debt, record deficit, increased taxes, and today they can actually deliver a wonderful black hole in their tobacco tax of $20 billion. So when we talk about rollout and delivery, why don't we talk about the South West?
They're excited about that.
Let's talk about, debt and deficit. They're very excited because they're best at it. So when we talk about the rollout and delivery, let's talk about the South West in my part of the world, which has been a major beneficiary of the Coalition's investment in communications. And I personally want to thank the Prime Minister and the Minister at the table for their support in getting better broadband sooner into the South West. It was nowhere under Labor. Unlike the Labor debacle, when my electorate was looking at NBN under Labor, it was on the next decade or beyond. My region today, under the Coalition, is seeing NBN rolling out right now. Boxes being built right throughout the electorate, cables being run down the streets, and, Minister, local technicians at work. Great opportunities for my local technicians and local employment, local people doing the work, and it's happening as I speak right now. And not from 2020, as Labor said, onwards for my electorate, no way in the world, 2020 or beyond. But our Coalition NBN project has ensured that the rollout will be completed sooner, cheaper for taxpayers and more affordably for the actual consumers of the product itself. We will soon see approximately 55,000 premises in my electorate of Forrest connected to the NBN. Fixed line technology, an additional 3,320 premises accessed through wireless technology throughout the South West, and the inefficient, years ahead of the time and costly, inefficient Labor broadband proposal. And we were looking, as I said, well beyond 2020. It was a never Labor plan. And of course, 6,500 went live last week in Bunbury. They're now getting access to the National Broadband Network, and of course they're being connected, and construction is continuing and is well underway throughout the Bunbury and broader region. The Greater Bunbury region will see a total of 32,000 premises accessing the NBN via fixed-line technology, much faster than previously thought. Not 2020 and beyond, but today, never under Labor. Construction is also underway in Busselton. They were also not going to have access till beyond 2020 under Labor. We're seeing street-side NBN cabinets installed there last month. Again, it was local technicians doing much of the work. In the Busselton region, 2,300 premises will soon be connected by fixed line to the NBN out of a total of 16,600 premises that will, over time, be getting fixed line access to the NBN, and another 2,500 will get wireless access. A further 4,300 premises, we're talking about delivery here, Minister, connected by fixed line in Eagle Bay, Quindalup and Dunsborough. And it was really fantastic, Minister, to see the interim satellite launched, the first of NBN's 2 world-class communication satellites. The Sky Muster means that the wait for access to NBN is over for more than the more remote homes and businesses not only in Forrest but right around Australia. Last week the Minister announced the Sky Muster was open for business. That's what you call delivery, Minister, open for business. And the eligible customers can now apply for their local internet service provider for a broadband connection. The Coalition's NBN is effective and efficient because it has a business model to operate under, a proper business model. And of course I welcome NBN Co Limited's half-yearly results, including customer research showing a level of satisfaction with broadband services are the same as those using the fibre to the premises technology. These results are a clear indication that the Coalition's approach to delivering the NBN sooner, more effectively, more cost-effectively is working. And, Minister, I congratulate you and the Prime Minister for your leadership in this space, seeing better broadband sooner delivered to the people of Forrest in my electorate.
I thank the member for Forrest and call the honourable member for Moreton.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, after we heard from the representative for the Communications Minister, I thought we'd hear from someone from that portfolio. I thought we'd hear from the Innovation Minister. Instead, who did we hear from? Someone symbolically connected with the horse and buggy, the whip. Yeah, that's how far back we have to go with those opposite when it comes to the NBN. Let's remember what the National Broadband Network is all about. Why are we doing it? Why are we investing money in the National Broadband Network? The NBN will give us the jobs of the future. The NBN will give us boosts in innovation. And I don't mean just a $28 million fake advertising campaign about innovation. NBN will deliver innovation. NBN will boost productivity, whether it be in manufacturing, whether it be in education, whether it will be in delivering services as the Asian century. That's why Labor was prepared to invest in fibre. Labor was prepared to invest in it. Why? We said right up front, let's do it right, let's do it once, let's do it with fibre. And we know it was a great policy because those opposite said they would do the same thing. In fact, in 2013, Malcolm Turnbull promised that under a coalition government in 2016, all Australians would have access to their NBN. That was the promise. The booklet that was waved by every candidate around the country saying we're on the same ticket. You know, it was just like Gonski, they'd be on the same ticket. Yep. The sad reality is 83% of this nation does not have Malcolm Turnbull's second-rate NBN. And I know it was a big campaign issue in the marginal seat of Moreton. And I'm quoting from the Southern Star, one of my trusted local Quest newspapers. They said, I quote, "The National Broadband Network is a hot topic for Moreton voters, some of whom have voiced concern over how the rollout will proceed if there is a change of government." And they quote from Rachel Zong, who had a business in Rocklea. And so what do you do now? If you want to see what's going on in Moreton, check out the NBN website right now. What does it say? Rona from Rocklea was concerned what would happen if the NBN got in. What does it say for Rocklea right now? I quote, "The rollout of the NBN network has not started in this area." Despite Malcolm Turnbull's promise, despite the LNP's promise. And my opponent, the LNP candidate, he said in 2013, and I quote, "We will get this out faster and cheaper than under the government's plan," the Labor government, "because we don't need to dig up every footpath to deliver the NBN to the home." But what do we have now? No upgrade at all, no NBN. They're left with an out-of-date copper service being centred in Mumbai or somewhere else, and we're still waiting. And who should we blame for that? That opportunity for innovation gone, the opportunity for productivity gone, the opportunity to selling jobs into services into Asia? Malcolm Turnbull, that's who. Who should we blame? Him. In 2013, Malcolm Turnbull said his second-rate NBN would cost $29.5 billion, now up to $56 billion. Now, I was an English teacher, not a maths teacher, but I think that's $26.5 billion extra. 26.5. He said that everyone in Australia would have his second-rate NBN by now, but look at what's happening. He said it would only cost $600 per home, but now the cost is $1,600 per home. In 2013, Malcolm Turnbull sabotaged the rollout of the NBN. We've seen that he estimated it would cost $55 million to patch up the NBN rollout. Instead, the cost blowout is 1,300% to more than $780 million. So we've got a hole of $1.4 billion. In the 2 years that Malcolm Turnbull was Communications Minister, he did not connect a single paying customer to his fibre to the node network. This management means the people in my electorate of Moreton are suffering. They're not happy with the LNP. Lee from Sunnybank Hills contacted my office about the slow implementation of the NBN, and he says, the volume of traffic on the internet has grown, particularly with the arrival of Netflix and other online media functions that are replacing TV broadcasting. Internet service providers now sell unlimited monthly volumes compared to, say, 50 to 100 GB a month just 3 years ago. Tim from Moorooka has also contacted my office. He says, my family and I have recently moved to Moorooka from regional Queensland. We're loving the vibrancy of the community as well as the diversity of the culture on show. However, I was disappointed to find out that NBN was not yet available and was told they didn't know when it might be available, despite the promises of my LNP opponent and despite the promises of the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr Malcolm Turnbull. Shame on him.
Yeah. Thank the member for Moreton's contribution. Call the honourable member for Parkes.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and as the Nationals whip, I'm probably closer to the horse and buggy than most in this place, and I could tell you something else. If it was up to the Labor Party, that's where country Australia would still be. The Labor Party's contribution today has been like that back-of-the-envelope service that Senator Conroy had up. It's been intermittent and garbled. That's what their contribution today's been, like their back-of-the-envelope service. Because I could tell you what, in 2013, when the coalition came to government, I asked the representatives of the NBN to come into my office to get a briefing as to where we're up to, and just out of interest I said, where's my hometown, where is it on the plan to be connected? 2024. 2024. I'm pleased to say that's now moved up to 2017 next year. As of tomorrow, 1,600 houses in Dubbo of 4,600 houses tomorrow. By the end of June, 16,000 homes in Dubbo. The homes in Wellington, Gulgong, Coolah already has it. The NBN is actually rolling out now at an escalating pace where people can actually see that they're going to get the service. But what's not to mention that on Monday the Sky Muster satellite came online, and people in my electorate now, the people in my electorate now can get the Sky Muster satellite, and it has extra added reason for wanting that satellite in my electorate, because for 6 years not 1 cent went into the mobile phone coverage, and the only connection that these people are going to have with the outside world is this satellite. The member for Moreton talks about someone from Jerry's Plains or Emu Hills or wherever it was that distressed. I bet you she's got a mobile phone that works. I bet you she can make a call when she wants to. But I can tell you what, the people in my electorate around Condobolin, around Wanaring, around Nevertire, around Upper Horton, they can't even make a phone call. They're running multi-million-dollar businesses and they can't make a phone call. And so I can tell you what, they're excited about the Sky Muster satellite going up. They're excited that the towns that they're dealing with in the businesses will be connected to fast broadband. They're excited that the wireless network that's going up in places like Gilgandra and Cooks Gap is actually going to make a difference to their lives. It's all right to have these lofty aspirations that got nutted out on the back of an envelope sipping Chardonnay somewhere over the desert in the VIP with the former Prime Minister and Minister for Communications. But when it comes to implementation, when it actually comes to doing something, digging up the dirt and laying cables, the members of the Labor Party have got no idea. Just like they have no idea with anything else to do of a practical nature with running the country. It's like getting a university assignment without actually any practical understanding of how it will be implemented. And what we've seen under the Prime Minister, when he was Minister for Telecommunications, ably assisted by the member for Bradfield, we are starting now to actually see this roll out on track in a timely manner. And what does it mean? Well, I can tell you what it means for someone like Gina Turbot, who runs Dust and Boots, an online clothing business that employs 4 or 5 people, 16 kilometres out of Warialda, selling workwear and smart casual wear, business wear online all over Australia, who's now relying on a patched-up phone service for connection and has great frustration with dropout. Someone like Dustin Boots will now be able to hook up to a reliable, regular satellite service and be connected not only to her customers right around Australia, but her suppliers in Indonesia, China and other places around the world where this company is operating from in regional Australia. Someone like the Lewises at Jack Wagyu, who sell product from their on-farm business, from products from their Wagyu cattle, they can now, with the connection to the satellite, will be able to operate their businesses. But what's more importantly also is the Black Spot program that a member for Bradfield oversaw, that saw 499 towers go up. The next round is coming along nicely, is that we're going to be able to have businesses in Australia, in regional Australia, in my electorate, for the first time, having something that the members in other parts of people of other parts of Australia take for granted.
And I call the honourable member for McEwen.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And what an interesting debate this is, and we have this quite regularly because of the failure of this government. First, we had the failure under